Hello everybody. This is my Diagnose a Famous Person PowerPoint. I decided to do mine on Ernest Hemingway and specifically alcoholism, but it falls under substance abuse. Sorry that I have to be in this not full screen mode, but it's the only way I could capture the screen. So let's get started. Alcohol and Hemingway, the life of an alcoholic. Ernest Miller Hemingway. Here are some pictures of him, both while he was in the war and later in his life. Ernest Miller Hemingway was born on July 21st of 1899. Happy birthday, Hemingway. Hemingway grew up in Oak Parks, Illinois, and northern Michigan, where his parents owned a cabin. After high school, Hemingway went to Italy during World War I, where he served as an ambulance driver. After sustaining injuries, which were shrapnel to the legs, both of them, Hemingway was hospitalized, where during his stay he started A Farewell to Arms, his first novel. In 1919, Hemingway returned to America, married his first wife, Hadley Richardson's, and moved to Paris to write for the Toronto Star. And he had a son, John Hemingway. In 1925, Ernest completed his first novel, The Sun Also Rises, after which he divorced his first wife and married his second wife, Pauline Pfeiffer. Hemingway and his new wife moved back to America when she became pregnant with his second son, Patrick Hemingway, and they settled in Key West, Florida. Shortly after moving to Florida, Hemingway finished A Farewell to Arms. In the late 1930s, Ernest reported on the Spanish Civil War, where he would meet his third wife, Martha Gellhorn, and gather material for one of his most famous novels, For Whom the Bell Tolls. In 1941, Hemingway served as a correspondent during World War II, where he was at many of the key moments, but most notably he was at the Normandy landings, also known as D-Day. After the war, Hemingway wrote The Old Man and the Sea, which won him the Pulitzer Prize, after he had been so long denied it for his other novels. Hemingway was an avid traveler, and during his adventures in Africa, he survived multiple plane crashes, which resulted in several injuries. In 1954, Ernest won the Nobel Prize in Literature, and after moving to Ketchum, Idaho, and finishing his last novel, A Movable Feast, Ernest Hemingway sadly committed suicide on July 2nd of 1961. Yes, that was a small introduction to Ernest Hemingway. The man is a legend in literature, and there is much, much more to talk about him. But do not fear, he will be reintroduced after the next section. Alcohol, an introduction to substance abuse. Alcohol is one of the 10 classes of substances listed under the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, also known as the DSM-5. Substance abuse is defined as an intense focus on using a certain substance, such as alcohol or drugs, or doing a certain activity, such as gambling, which is actually a new installment in the DSM-5, to the point that it takes over one's life. Substance disorders include substance use disorder, substance intoxication, substance withdrawal, and substance or medication-induced mental disorders. Problems that result from any substance abuse may include impaired control, such as the constant desire for a substance, also the craving for a substance, social problems such as the failure to function properly at work, home, or school, which is probably the first sign of substance abuse that is most noticeable. Risky use, which is the use of when a drug is used and it causes either physical or psychological problems or both of them, which is quite often. And drug effects. After doing any sort of substance for a long amount of time, the body can build a tolerance to the drug, which means that the body needs more of that substance to obtain a high, or in this case, intoxication. And when one becomes sober from the effects of the substance, the body can go into a withdrawal period. Intoxication from alcohol can have many symptoms, including slurred speech, lowered coordination ability, unsteady walking, which includes both the cycle of walking, as in the rhythm, and the actual stability of each step, and quick eye movements. Withdrawals from alcohol may include one or all of the following, which is sweating, increased heart rate, tremors, especially in the hands, troubled sleeping, or in some cases sleep deprivation, nausea, and most notably in alcohol abuse is vomiting, hallucinations, and in some cases anxiety. Here's a graph that shows the different stages and the timeline of those stages of the alcohol withdrawal. I'll give you a couple minutes to look over that. Alrighty. Other effects of alcohol is destruction of the body. Liver failure can come from drinking too much alcohol, as included increased risk of cancer and brain interference. And a very noticeable one is the alcohol can affect the body mass index or the weight of a person. Here is just my reference for that specific section. Why Hemingway could have been considered an alcoholic. Hemingway's connection to alcohol and the signs that he was an alcoholic. Here's a very famous quote from him. "My only regret in life is that I did not drink more wine. Need I say more?" In all seriousness, though, there has been a documentation kept from biographers that Ernest Hemingway was a heavy alcoholic. In his academic journal titled Ernest Hemingway, A Psychological Autopsy of a Suicide, Christopher Martin cites multiple references to Hemingway's addiction. Most notable was a letter from Hemingway's physician, A.J. Monier, stating, "My dear Ernie, you must stop drinking alcohol. This is definitely of the utmost importance, and I shall never, never insist too much." Hemingway, in fact, had been advised by multiple doctors to abstain from alcohol. There has been at least 3 attempts from doctors that advise him not to drink, and these are the ones that were written down. There's most likely more just from verbal interaction. Ernest also suffered abdominal pain and had a liver destroyed from his alcohol dependency. Hemingway also suffered from cognitive impairment in his later years, which is hypothesized to be caused from years of alcohol dependency and multiple incidents. Again, another reference for that specific section. The possible treatments that I believe would have helped Ernest Hemingway overcome his problems. The two possible treatments that I believe could have helped Ernest Hemingway overcome his problems are the cognitive therapy, specifically the rational emotive behavior therapy, or REBT, and the client-centered therapy. Within the rational emotive behavior therapy, Ernest Hemingway did not have a high self-esteem. After being left for another man by his potential first wife, Agnes von Karwowski, who was the nurse during the time Hemingway was admitted into the hospital in Italy when his legs were hit by shrapnel, Hemingway most likely had a low self-esteem. Realizing that his opinion of himself is the only one that matters, Hemingway may have felt better about himself and not felt the need to consistently drink. Although he was a writer and probably felt highly of himself when he won those awards, it is most likely from this first interaction and others that I will get to on the next page that may have led him to have a low self-esteem, and being able to believe more in himself may have helped him. Within the client-centered therapy, by creating a comfortable environment, Hemingway may have been able to let out more emotions than he already did. Being able to freely express emotions to somebody else directly may have led Hemingway to realize some of his own problems while at the same time coming to acceptance of some of his problems in the past. Some of his problems in the past may have been that his father had committed suicide. Hemingway actually did not like either of his parents and actually fantasized about killing both of them. Coming to accept some of those problems and not have them repressed may have helped him. And just coming to the acceptance of his own alcoholism may have helped Hemingway. I do not believe that any interventions, whether they be family or group therapy, could have helped him, as he had been advised by most people in his life not to drink. And that's why I believe these two in particular would have been better versus those traditional ones for substance abuse. And that brings us to the very end. Thank you for either watching this video or reading the PowerPoint on its own, and this is my reference page. Thank you all very much.